Come on in. There's plenty of seats. Join us. This is what it looks like when 1,000 energy executives are in the same room at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stakeholder Symposium. What an incredible moment. Someone asked me outside just a minute ago, how did you were sold out last year at 650 people, and now you're sold out at 1,000. Our wall used to be at the end of this colored area right here. So we've expanded all the way into this space, 350 more people. What an incredible testament to the importance of a conversation like we're going to have here in the next 2 days, yes? You know, those who were with us at our first symposium in 2009, about 100 maybe, 125 of you, we went over to a local hotel, threw some flip charts up on the wall, I see some heads nodding, kind of came up with some ideas for integrating renewables. Who'd have thought, right? Who'd have thought 7 years later we have this? If you look around you, this really is a who's who of our business, isn't it? Utilities, both public and IOU. Generators, both renewable and conventional. Market participants of many kinds. Neighboring balancing areas. International guests from 10 countries. Think about that for the first time. Welcome our international guests with me, would you please? We left each other in this room, this is an interesting fact, exactly 365 days ago. What a year this has been, right? The speed of play, the pace of play has not slowed down a bit. In fact, we all agree, I think it's gone up. No matter what your vantage point, no matter where you come from, you're going to probably agree it's been a heck of a ride over the last year and it's not stopping. So for the next 2 days, we're going to join together and we're going to sample our progress, note some accomplishments we've made together. But we don't have a heck of a lot of time for reminiscing because we've got a lot of new work to do. So that's what we're going to focus on for 2 days is new issues we're grappling with together, focus our energy on next year and the next decade. The symposium is really about that, examining objectives, working our way through solutions that help us maintain reliability, mitigate upward pressures on cost, and hit our carbon goals. In your packet is your agenda, and we've got a tremendous program for you. We've got thought-provoking panels, we've got very significant and distinguished speakers, and some new features. A couple things to make note of. Many of you have noted the town hall sessions in our post-event survey, how much you enjoy those. 8 panelists on stage at once. We don't think there's anywhere else that does this. It's totally risky, but it's really fun. We're going to have 2 of those this year. We're also going to continue, as you saw when you came in, not going to, we are continuing our technology showcase. Stacy, would you bring up that graphic for me, please? These exhibitors dedicate their time, energy, and money to bring their products here. You know what else they do? They help keep the cost down for all of us. So please join me in thanking them with a round of applause. Please also make sure you stop by those exhibits. There's some fascinating information to be shared there. How do we make the room for this to get bigger? How do we create this bigger room? We knocked down a wall there. Well, something had to give. And this year we're going to take a break from our breakout sessions. Now some of you may say, shoot, that was my moment to sound off, to share my views. Well, we tried to give you more networking time. In fact, we have over 2 hours of networking time today alone. So take advantage of that and use those moments to share your views with the parties, the individuals that you want to talk to. Something else we're going to do that's new. We're going to stream for the first time our keynotes live over the internet. We're doing that for a couple reasons. One, a lot of people couldn't get in. We sold out. So we're going to stream our keynotes and give others who couldn't get in the door the chance to watch those addresses. We're also going to stream tomorrow's international panels. And that way, our international guests can be seen by their friends back home in Europe and elsewhere. The PUC made an incredible gesture. The commissioners made an incredible gesture this year. They moved their commission meeting to Sacramento today so that they could join the symposium. They're not here yet, but they will be soon. And several of the commissioners have asked me to ask you a favor. When you're speaking with a PUC commissioner, be aware of active proceedings. We all have obligations to be appropriate when speaking to commissioners, and they would rather have you not use a drive-by to advance a position that you have on an active proceeding. So before you speak to a PUC commissioner, think about the proceeding you might be speaking about and be appropriate. And make sure you let them know I told you to do that. Okay, a couple more things, then we'll get on with our program. Last year, I made a play, successful play, to ask you to join us on Twitter. Some of you might say, well, I never did that. Dowdy, it's just a novelty. I'm not going to do it. It's not a novelty. Because we're sitting here today, we're enjoying a beautiful engagement together, peaceful and quiet. Someday, an earthquake will come, or a cyber attack, or God forbid, a more serious attack. It won't be fun and won't be peaceful. And we're going to need to communicate with you. You're going to be sitting at your home at 1 o'clock on Saturday morning after an earthquake and ask, what's the status of the grid? Twitter is our only way to communicate with you in that circumstance. So, do me a favor. Let's add 200 Twitter followers today to the ISO's Twitter feed. When that emergency comes someday, you'll remember our discussion here and you'll say, I'm really glad I had that. It is not a novelty. It is the most important communications medium that we have with you. All right, I want to acknowledge a few people. The Symposium leadership team is myself and 3 other directors, and let me say their names now. Oscar Hidalgo, Phil Pettengill, Joanne Serena. Would you guys stand, please? I want these folks to acknowledge you. Phil over here. Joanne over here. Thank you all. We planned the symposium more than a year in advance. We're already planning next year's before this one occurs. It's a fascinating experience. There are about 15 other people that work on the symposium, and tomorrow at the end of our session here, I'll share their names with you. Okay, one last acknowledgement. In this strange little family of ours, one of our beloved friends is getting married on Saturday. He's going to be here today and not tomorrow. Kevin Barker of the California Energy Commission. Are you here, Kevin? Come on, Kevin. You can't get married if you're not here. Well, later, he's going to know that people gave him an applause for his last day as a bachelor. This is my last moment on this stage for now. I'm going to turn it over to my 2 bosses. Please welcome Steve Berberick and Dave Olson.
Thank you, Tom, and as always, quite a show. We're delighted to be here today. We truly appreciate all of you coming. It's an amazing event. We want to have great collaboration with each one of you and think about and talk about the great ideas that come from just such an esteemed group that have come here today. I particularly, though, want to acknowledge some folks that are going to be with us. President Picker from the Public Utility Commission, as well as some of the other commissioners, will be joining us today, as Tom Dowdy said. Chair Nichols from the California Air Resources Board will be joining us, as well as some other commissioners. And Cliff Rechtschaffen from the governor's office. And as a German heritage, I'm one of the few that can even pronounce Cliff's last name. So I feel pleased about that. But I also want to welcome and acknowledge, and I think it's actually a testament to what's going on here in the West. We also have commissioners from out of state. We have Commissioner Travis Kavula. We have Commissioner Phil Jones. We have Commissioner Susan Bitter-Smith. And we have Commissioner John Savage from Oregon, from Arizona, from Wyoming, from across the West, from Oregon as well. So we're delighted to have them. We also have FERC Commissioner Cheryl LaFleur with us, and we truly appreciate Commissioner LaFleur, you taking the time and coming here to California to join us for this discussion. I also want to recognize my bosses, our board. We have Governor Olson to my right, Ash Bhagwat, Angelina Glitova, Mark Farron, and also Richard Mullen. Richard, our board chair, sends his regrets. He is not able to join us today, but our esteemed Dave Olson is going to step in and do an able job in his absence. We also have a great group of people from across Europe that are going to tell us stories about how they've tackled the challenge for renewables, for decarbonizing the grid, for advancing it to the new age. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dave Olson to acknowledge them.
It's really a distinguished group. Very, very happy to have them with us this week. Starting with Boris Schucht, who is the CEO of 50 Hertz, a transmission system operator in Germany. Åke Lont, the CEO of Statnett, a Norway system operator. Ben Vorhorst, the COO of Tennet, a transmission system operator in the Netherlands and Germany. Hervé Lefay, the Deputy CEO of RTE, the French grid operator. Luigi Micchi of Terna, the Italian grid operator. And Jörg Spicker of Swissgrid, the Switzerland grid operator. We also have leaders from Germany's Environmental Agency and the Ministry of Economy and Energy. We have regulators from the UK and Turkey, including the chairman of the International Council on Energy Regulators. And we have 8 NGO leaders working across Europe who are indispensable partners in the energy transition going on there. So it's truly an honor to have them with us.
Thank you, Dave. If I can segue a little bit and move on to kind of the year in review, because I think it's truly been an amazing year. And I think we all benefit from the opportunity to be in this tornado of change because it keeps things interesting, it keeps us moving. Just some factoids here in California. Obviously, we continue to have the growth of renewables on our grid. This year, we hit, on multiple occasions, 40% of the load being served by renewables. We clearly see the growth of solar on our grid, significantly more, and we hit new records almost every day this summer. The solar has grown approximately 35% since we last spoke to you. Now, we're going to work to new areas. We're going to go to 50% on our grid with the passage of SB 350. And I'll note, this is 2015. We have 15 short years to figure out how to do that and write the playbook for that doesn't exist. Also in that bill, it contemplates a governance change for the ISO itself so that we can work toward more collaboration with our neighbors. This is supported by the governor, obviously voted by the legislature, but there's much work that has to be done, and we will work on that. Part of that was that PacifiCorp announced that they would like to combine balancing authorities with the ISO. We recently published a benefit study that showed benefits on the order of $3 billion to $9 billion over 20 years. Those are direct benefits to ratepayers. But there's a side benefit to that. As California thinks about integrating higher levels of renewables, the surrounding states grapple with the Clean Power Plan. We all have to work together collaboratively to make it work. And I think these are our steps toward doing that. EIM, the energy imbalance market continues to grow. We started the year with PacifiCorp as the sole operating unit. We're going to have Nevada Energy here shortly, pending some FERC orders that we expect to get. And we see Puget Sound, APS, and perhaps others also joining that market. And I want to note the energy imbalance market is not an ISO's market, it's the West's market. The ISO is simply the platform for that market, and we intend to engage very collaboratively and transparently in creating the governance for the energy imbalance market as well. But here locally, we've also done a number of things to help integrate renewables. The FlexiRamp product, because we know we're going to need more ramping. DERP, which you all know, and such a great acronym, isn't it? The Distributed Energy Resource Provider, affectionately known as DERP. I hated it when it first came to us, but it kind of grew on me a little bit. So I'm thinking about getting a tattoo about DERP. Transmission planning. Obviously, we're going to tackle what it takes to grow the grid again to 50% renewables and to continue to collaborate with our neighbors. But part of that has highlighted something I think that California should be proud of. The deep collaboration and integration between the ISO, the CEC, the PUC, the Air Resources Board has been phenomenal. The leadership of those organizations are committed to this collaboration and will continue it. But finally, we also had to keep our eye on the ball. We had the highest load this year in the last 7 years. So we still have to manage that. We still have to keep our eye on reliability, and we'll do that. But there's also a look forward. There's a strategy for the ISO. The board has established a number of things they want us to do. And to reflect on that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Olson. He can speak to you about those. Dave?
So 3 years ago, the ISO board developed a strategic vision which revolves around decarbonizing and decentralizing electric service. Expanding regional cooperation was a third major theme. That vision is becoming reality much faster than we thought possible, thanks in large part to the leadership of Governor Brown and the California legislature, and to the active interest of load-serving entities and generators across the western U.S. So as Steve mentioned, Senate Bill 350 now gives us an agenda for moving that vision forward. It requires us to double the energy efficiency in buildings in the next 14 years. Figuring out how to do so most cost effectively is going to take our collective creativity and focus. So the 50% renewable energy requirement in the law does not include behind-the-meter generation. So if we count rooftop photovoltaic and hydro, in 2030, California will have more than 60% renewable generation, non-thermal generation. From a grid operations point of view, that's going to require substantial changes. Procurement is going to have to become strategic. We'll need geothermal and wind and concentrating solar, not just PV. We need demand resources in our wholesale market, lots of them. We need large-scale storage in addition to small-scale distributed storage. Power purchase agreements are going to have to change to require renewables to be dispatched. We're going to have to get essential reliability services from wind and solar and demand resources. We're going to have to figure out how to pay gas generation to remain available while it runs fewer and fewer hours. This is not business as usual. Steve mentioned the law also requires us to explore expanding to operate regionally. So we will do studies of the impacts on jobs and on disadvantaged communities. We're beginning stakeholder processes that look at regional resource adequacy, our transmission access charge, and as well as the transition to regional governance. We take the concern about loss of unilateral California control seriously, and we will work closely with the legislature to ensure that pathways to regional integration are thoroughly and thoughtfully considered. There is some urgency. Steve mentioned the very large cost savings to California customers and to customers across the entire region. the reliability benefits of regional integration and the greenhouse gas benefits may be equally or more important. So operating regionally can reduce the cost of meeting our renewable energy targets and help other states meet their clean power plan obligations. So that's why we have this focus on regional integration in this symposium, and why we've invited our friends from Mexico, who are working to establish an independent system operator there, and our colleagues from Europe. Angelina Galitova, ISO board member, and Antonella Battellini, the CEO of Europe's Renewables Grid Initiative, organized this European delegation as part of an Energy Regions in Transition tour. So the delegation has been meeting with California policymakers and visiting clean tech companies this week. All of our European colleagues face very similar challenges to our own. They have the same greenhouse gas reduction goal. They are working to share resources across national borders, in their case, and to build public acceptance of the transmission necessary to do so. They're working to create a single European electricity market to facilitate all these other policy goals. So we can learn a lot from each other. Personally, I have already, being with them all week, and we thank them for taking the time to make the trip to be here. One last thing the board would like you to know, and that is, as California faces these challenges, how fortunate we are to have Steve Berberick leading the ISO. Steve brings a clear and compelling vision of a more secure and sustainable electric system. He inspires and challenges and supports the entire staff, beginning with his excellent management team. Speaking for all of us on the board, it is a privilege to work with such proactive and hardworking people. But no one organization or agency can move this agenda on its own. It's going to take all of us working collaboratively. As Tom mentioned, this symposium is an opportunity to begin the discussions and strengthen the relationships that we'll need. And that's why we are so happy to see you all here. So, Steve.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for those kind words. I scripted him on that. You'll also be able to know, we talk about the things we learned from the Europeans. Well, the Germans last night were schooling me on exactly how I'm supposed to say my last name, and I'm not doing it right. So, still working to reconcile. I'm going to call my father and just have a discussion with him about that. But anyway, I want to thank everyone once again for participating at this. We've got so much to discuss. We have SB 350 in California. We have the Clean Power Plan outside of the state. We have regionalism, governance, all of those things that we have to work with. We have overgeneration here in California that we're going to have to grapple with. But not viewing it as a problem, but viewing it as an opportunity to do some great things, because there must be a good societal answer for clean, cheap energy. There's got to be good things that can come out of that, and we need to find ways to do that. Governor Olson talked about energy efficiency. How does that play in? We'll have to grapple with that too. And then finally, part of the decarbonization is the electric, or the transportation industry, and I think the electric industry can play a critical role in that. And so we just have to connect all these dots. And it'll take a lot of conversation, a lot of good ideas, but I'm confident that we can all do that. So with that, we'll move on with the show. Tom, I'll turn it over to you.